Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Do you know what one of my biggest qualms is with doing this podcast?
Why do you have to do it with me?
That you're overly emotional. Yeah.
All of the new listeners are like, I don't know what this podcast is.
Who is this man? And how dare he call her overly emotional? And there's some other guys in the background cheering
They're
me
like,
on.
You're right. Put her in her place.
Yeah, stick it to her. Yeah, it's been stuck too.
Don't let those emotions bully you.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. Today, we're going to have a really great conversation around emotions because there is like this eternal battle between two different parties. And one is the party that says, your emotions don't matter. They're way too much.
And then there's the other people that are scared their emotions are too much and are also having them and are also like, this is me and I'm emotional and take it or leave it.
Yeah. So we want to have a conversation that's fairly balanced around that conversation because I think that these two extremes cause a lot of detriment in relationships, whether that's romantic ones or just friendships and stuff like that. And a lot of people walk away feeling really invalidated around this conversation.
Yes. The truth is that everybody has threats around emotions. Some people have threats when people don't have enough emotions. They feel threatened by that. Some people have threats when people have too big of emotions. Some people have certain emotions they think are scary. So they're scared of certain emotions and not others. But what happens is when we believe emotions are dangerous, we end up doing some really self-protective behavior that then can invalidate and shut down the people around us or can explode and dominate the people around us. And we had recently, I'm teaching in the Reclaiming You course, which is so fun. I'm loving it. We have an amazing group this year, and I absolutely love them. And somebody asked this question, and it was such a great question. She was scared that she's too much, scared that she's emotionally too much. And her ex-husband had told her, you're just too emotional. And so she was asking about that process of what is too emotional. And as soon as she said that, someone else spoke up and was like, you're not too emotional. Your emotions are beautiful and perfect just the way they are. One of the things I love about our environments is people are wanting to cheer people on and validate each other and support each other. And so I thought that was really beautiful. But I did say, I don't know that I agree with you. I don't know that I agree that her emotions are perfect just the way they are, because I was like, it's not about is she emotional or too emotional? It's how does she handle her emotions?
Right.
Because everyone is having reactions to life. When you start to learn about your nervous system, you realize that every single body is a threat detector. Our nervous system is using our 5 senses, what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and we're trying to evaluate, am I safe? Am I in danger or am I in life impending doom? And as we're going through the world, we're navigating, is this safe? Is this not safe? And so we're always detecting threats. So it's not, is anyone emotional versus other people are not emotional? It's how does our body sense threats? And then what does our system do to protect ourselves from those threats? And then how do we manage that process? So there aren't really people who are just not emotional. They may have less threats that activate them. Or sometimes what we say is non-emotional is that their threat system takes them into freeze or flight. So I have a friend who, when she feels emotions, she just goes to work. I'm going to get stuff done. I'm going to clean the house. I'm going to extra perform at my job, and I'm going to work my way up in my career path so I don't have to feel my emotions. It's not that she's having less emotions. It's just that the way she's displaying them is non-emotionally.
Right.
But she's having a reaction to the threat, whatever it is in her life that's making her feel unsafe. She's having a reaction to that. The reaction is get busy, do things. Then you have other people who have a reaction of freeze. And so they just shut down. They go numb. They feel nothing. Well, that actually still means they had the threat. So everybody is having threats. It's impossible to avoid. So if we can think of emotions as the way that we respond to threats, and some people respond to threats by minimizing emotions, shutting them down, disconnecting from emotions, and other people respond by having emotions. But we're all having threats.
Yeah, I want to talk into this. So from my personal life experience, I've had the way that emotions were conveyed were very detrimental to me.
Yeah.
Personally. Emotions came out blaming, attacking, aggressive, and intense, and in a manner that felt so destructive to my heart, right? And so oftentimes I think when people talk about being too emotional, there is an avenue of being too emotional, which is what someone's really trying to say is the way that I'm experiencing you convey your emotions does not feel good to me.
Yes.
That's one aspect of that. And I also want to say that I also, on the flip side of that coin, experience someone who emoted in a way that they actually got really quiet, distant, and disconnected from me. And that was equally painful. And at the time, I wouldn't have identified it as they're being overly emotional. But they were being overly emotional. Like when we're talking about the context of over emotional is actually someone who is expressing their emotions in a way that causes a lot of detriment or pain or is not very fun to experience. Right. Like, so this individual went inward like a turtle, and all of those emotions were imploding inside of them. And what that led to was a sense of abandonment that I experienced inside of it. But they looked entirely two different. One was an outward and external, and one was a very internal thing. But they both had a similar impact, and they both were rooted in the idea that these two individuals didn't know how to manage and express their emotions well.
Yes. Is it funny that the whole time you were talking, I was just trying to figure out who in your life that was? Didn't figure it out. I'll ask you later.
Okay.
But I was thinking about what we're talking about, and what I said to the person is there isn't such thing as too emotional, as in we're having too many reactions. It's human to have threat responses. But we can be too emotional in how we use our emotions. And I often think kind of like emotions are like water. And I can blast you in the face with high pressure water gun.
Or a shotgun. Blow your face
shotgun?
off with it. No. I mean, also emotions are like a shotgun sometimes. They just go off and just big spread and blow your face off.
Okay, emotions are like, well, I don't want it to be something dangerous necessarily.
Okay, hose. You're being hosed.
I always think about a hose. I think about the summer yard, and you're out playing in the yard, and you're like drinking from the hose because we did that as kids. It probably gave us all kinds of parasites.
Yeah, I never drank from a shotgun. So great. Keep going with your analogy.
Okay, so I'm thinking about a hose. You have it on the summer. And if you kink the hose, like if you fold it up so you stop the water flow, then the pressure of the water builds and builds and builds. And then if you let it go, all of a sudden it like shoots out really intense. And I think about emotions like a hose, and it's not that you can turn the water off entirely as a human. You can't shut off all of your emotions. But you get to determine what and how you deal with the water. Are you going to shut it off?
Yeah. Kink the hose. And then like spray somebody with super high pressure and hurt them? Or are you going to learn how to let it trickle? And are you going to aim it at the garden? Or are you going to aim it at the person in Sunday dress, their Sunday best? So it really is, I have reactions. My body's going to have reactions. That's my nervous system. And what I learn to do with those reactions, do I take them out on others? What do I do with the energy inside of myself? There's a very real energy to emotions.
What I do with that determines if it is too much or not.
Yeah. I want to make a generalized statement here inside of this real quick here. Generally speaking, I've had a lot of men communicate that it feels like women are too emotional.
Yes.
Right? And
it's because we are.
Because one of the things that they don't have an ability to articulate is that the way the emotions feel outletted feels out of control. It feels like a kinked hose experience that suddenly gets released, and they're getting sprayed with all of these, getting flooded with all of these emotions that someone else is having, and oftentimes feeling like they're being almost punished by the behavior. And so there's that side of the coin. And then there's the other side of the coin where oftentimes, again, big generalization here on both sides, but women will be like, men are just non-emotional whatsoever. And I'm like, no, it's not that they're not emotional, but it makes sense. You feel disconnected from, because a lot of men take it inward in order to deal with stuff. And then they outlet it in their workplace. Like you talked about busyness, or I don't know, explosions that eventually come out of them as well.
Yeah.
But you do have both sides of those coins that happen inside of those relationships. And it makes for a lot of damning battles that happen back and forth between men and women.
Well, I think about, this is a generalization, but as kids, I think women are more taught to want co-regulation with each other. We all need co-regulation, but women are taught, you could help me hold my emotions. You could help me contain them. So when I have something hard going on as a little girl, I could go tell my friends and I could cry with them. And that was not weird. And so there's almost a culture of, you are expecting the people around you to help you contain and hold emotions.
Participate in the process.
Yes. And that's good and bad. Like, there's beauty in our ability to co-regulate and share with people. But when we believe it's other people's jobs to contain our big feelings, then we'll blame them if our feelings aren't contained.
Right.
And I think, at least in the past generations, men were not taught that they needed to go feel their feelings with somebody else. They weren't taught that they needed someone else to contain them.
And we were actually taught, and this is ever evolving, right, in society, but we were taught to go onto an isolated island, and that you should be able to 100% manage all of these emotions by yourself.
Yes.
And the need for inviting other people into it is not only wrong, but it is a sign of weakness, right? And so, again, there's the two extremes. One, everyone else is supposed to hold all my emotions for me. I can't hold any of it for myself, almost to that extreme. Two, I hold all of it on my own and I'm going to die this way.
Yes. Now, I do want to say it depends on how you were raised, how you self-protected, and the culture that you were in. Because I know women who are like, I need to feel all my own feelings by myself and I won't ever be vulnerable with people. And I know men who are really good at being vulnerable and feeling their feelings with other people. But typically,
the generalization
that I have found in our offices is women expect their partners, whoever they are, to help them figure out how to deal with their own emotions.
Right.
And that can become a big problem. And so for this human that we were talking to in the course, I was like, we have to learn how to have our feelings and be safe with our emotions. We have to learn how to have big feelings and hold them in a way that doesn't damage the people around us. We don't need to have shame for having big feelings. We don't need to have shame for having lots of emotions. We don't need to have shame for having triggers, but we do need to have responsibility for, I'm going to learn how to hold these big feelings in a safe way and not take them out on the people around me.
Yeah, that's really good. I know that you were wanting to bring an example into this conversation when we were earlier talking about this.
Yes.
Privately.
There is a couple that we have known for years, and they have worked through so much stuff together in their relationship. But the husband, his mom was very emotional and cried a lot. The truth is, she was probably in her little girl as she was parenting a lot. So she needed the kids to help parent her. She needed the kids to help contain her emotions. She was looking to them to help her survive emotionally. Like, I don't think she consciously was thinking that, but emotionally she was needing from them. We call it emotional incest syndrome. There's a book on it. We don't call it that, but there's a book where when parents need the child to meet their own needs and help raise them. And so that situation happened with him when he was growing up. His mom really needed him and had big emotions. And so then he got married to a woman who had emotions. And when she would have emotions, he would immediately be like, that's dangerous. Your emotions are dangerous. You're too much, which then she would immediately feel invalidated and like, I'm not too much. The things I'm saying really matter. There are really big problems here. I'm really being hurt here. And the more she would escalate her emotions and have more feelings, the more he would diminish her emotions. And this is the dance that a lot of us get into.
Real bad dance.
When we want to feel valid, if somebody is trying to calm us down, it feels like they're not seeing that there was a real pain point. And so the more people try to calm us down, the more intense we get. Like, no, there is an issue. No, there is an issue. Don't try to minimize this. And the more emotional we get about trying to say there's something real here, the more the person who's scared of emotions gets threatened and the more they try to calm it down. And so we get into these cycles. So they got into this cycle over and over and over again. And eventually she did learn how to manage her emotions much better. And she learned how to be vulnerable. And so she got to the place where she could come and say, I can tell my feelings are really hurt. I feel sad. She wasn't using blame language. She was taking ownership for her own parts of things. But he would still be completely shut off because vulnerability felt like manipulation from his childhood. So even when she learned how to handle her emotions healthily, he actually still was cold and shut down towards her. And this is the dance that can happen, is that one, we need to learn how to manage our emotions in a safe way. But two, if you have a judgment against emotions, then even if somebody is having emotions in a safe way, you may not see that it's safe. You may not feel that it's safe. You may not be able to connect to that. And so he actually had to go into a healing process from his childhood about the vows and the judgments he made against those emotions in order to be able to meet each other and see that both people's experiences were valid.
Well, I want to touch on something you were talking about earlier. You talked about the bad dance. I sometimes refer to it as the self-protection tug of war.
Yes.
And in a self-protection tug of war, what begins to happen is we begin to recognize that something that we need isn't happening, or something is happening that we don't want. And so, for instance, all of a sudden, the woman in the scenario, she's like, hey, I'm having emotions here. And all of a sudden he goes, this feels scary. I'm going to start pulling away. And then she turns and goes, wait a second, you're pulling away. I'm having bigger emotions here. And then he's like, I'm pulling away more. And you watch in the self-protective tug of war, all of a sudden you find each other on two extreme ends. And I've watched this over and over with couples. So it's like, she's so extreme. She has these big, intense emotions. And she's like, he's so disconnected from the relationship. But what you find out is he's over here saying like, if I don't swing all the way over here, I'm going to be consumed by her emotions. And she's like, if I don't get this big, he is never going to hear me and he's going to abandon me.
And so what you have happen is the more they go on to self-protection, the more extreme they get. The more shut down he gets, the more loud she gets.
Correct.
And so the battle actually takes you out of who you want to be, your authentic self, because neither person really in their most authentic self wants to be that extreme version of themselves. They're just doing that to counterbalance what they feel is happening. And I've seen this cycle so many times in our marriage
I was gonna say that.
when I feel like you're trying to shut me down, I like grab a hold of that thing and hold on tighter. I'm like, no, you can't shut me down. And when you feel like I'm like getting frustrated about something, you've wanted in the past to really get out of that experience. And so you've wanted to stop it at all costs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really detrimental, and it's not showing authentically what either of the two people is true to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like her level of intensity is actually this level,
Mm-hmm.
and his level of avoidance is actually, this level. It's not this, it's this. And so one of the things that has to begin to happen in these scenarios is acknowledge, like, I might be reacting.
Yes.
Am I reacting?
I might be reacting to my history,
Mm-hmm.
or I might be reacting to threat
Mm-hmm.
more than what my partner is actually trying to explain.
Mm-hmm. And if I am reacting, how can I start communicating that? Because I've found that when couples will sit down and say, actually, I mean, we'll just keep it to us.
Okay.
I know that when you and I have had dialogues and you've said, I'm actually just scared that you're going to entirely dismiss this stuff altogether here. I'm like, okay, she has a fear of this being dismissed.
Yes.
Okay. Then I can say, well, I feel overwhelmed in some of the ways that it's being communicated. Can we find a different way of communicating it and meet in the middle ground? And I want to face it with you in a way that doesn't feel like it's eviscerating me internally.
Yes.
And what happens in that, we see that there's a common goal to move back towards the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden the threat starts de-escalating the threat inside of it, because we see like, oh, we're actually not over this far on each of the end of this stuff. We're actually closer to the middle than we thought.
Guess what we just did?
What did we just do, Abby?
We created the connection cure. And I think this is the thing that I'm most excited that we've ever created for people, because it is all of the years of courses that we've made, making it available in one monthly healing membership where you get to be connected to people who are going on the same journey as you, while getting access to all of the things that we have made: Relationship Glue, Reclaiming You, the Compassion Project,
the Father Series, Living Fully Alive, the Regulation Library.
Yes, we have so many things that we've created over the years. We've had over 10,000 people do our courses. We've met with over 4,000 individual clients. And now we have brought all of it together so that you could have access to all of it for less than one counseling session a month.
Yep. And what's really cool is that monthly we have live connection calls where people get together and have those connection moments, talk about what they're going through, how they're healing in their process. And that's been one of the number one things that people have said is so incredible about doing our courses, is the community that they create and the healing that takes place inside of that community. I mean, we've had people find their spouses,
find their best friends, find their community, because finally there's people where they realize I'm not alone and I'm allowed to be loved right now in the messiness of my life, before everything is fixed, before everything is perfect. You can belong before you have transformed. You can be loved before you're fixed in this community. And it is really rich and beautiful and healing. We're meant to heal with each other. And the whole point of why we made this is so that people could have a holistic healing pathway. We do so much with connecting to your body and actually learning how to move with your body through emotions so that things don't get buried alive in your body. The body keeps the score. We want to zero that score out. And then we have heart connection stuff where you're actually feeling empathy for yourself and others, where you're actually connecting to your own story and you're actually having time to not just learn logically about why you do what you do, but actually have new feelings towards yourself. And then we have all of the logic, the neuroscience, all of the reasons why your body and your brain do what they do, so you can actually understand yourself for the first time and start to have kindness towards why your body is made to react the way it is so that you can heal. It's body, heart, and mind all together in a way that is really, really beautiful.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a really cool membership because You get to stay as long as you want or as short as you want inside of it. You're not trapped inside of it, but you have access to an incredible community and great information. And so that is coming soon. You can go to Justin and Abby, that's abi.com, and you can get on our mailing list there, and we'll let you be the first to know when we release that. But this is something we've been planning for a while now, and I'm glad we're getting to do it.
It's about to come out. This is one of the most common couple fights where it goes round and round because they just are reacting to each other's reactions. And it becomes this tug of war. And what you're really talking about is learning how to let go of that rope and come back to each other and find each other again and actually hear what's going on beneath the reactions. And I think this has been our biggest battle. I think we both had an issue, and this is where people will feel unheard for years because couples will have the same fight over and over and over again. And one will dig their feet in and one will dig their heels in, and they won't see each other because they keep feeling like diminished by how the other person is approaching it, instead of letting go of the tug of war and actually looking for what is going on underneath both of us building up the problem because we're not feeling heard.
Yeah. One of the things that was a massive solution for me when it came to the self-protective tug of war is I started to ask myself the question, who do I want to be and how do I want to show up inside of life? So first and foremost, for me, I started looking in the mirror and I was like, is the behavior in the way that I'm participating conducive to love? Is it conducive to my value system? Is it conducive to how I want to be experienced? Regardless of how Abby is showing up inside of this. And so there was a lot of self-reflection that went into that, as well as I sat with my counselor and had a lot of dialogues where one, it was, if Abby never validates me and Abby never sees me, can I be okay? Can I be seen inside of this? And I started learning how to validate myself further over some of these issues, receive validation from my counselor inside of that space, and then also get plans on how I can be powerful myself.
Yeah.
And so that gave me a sense of like, oh, I'm starting to let go of this rope, let go of this fight, and find healthy ways to communicate myself about how I was experiencing you. So it wasn't just, okay, Abby can do whatever and I'll do nothing. No, but it was, I'm going to learn how to grow and I'm going to learn how to communicate well about what's going on for me. And so again, that helped in reducing the experience that we were having.
Yeah. I think I want to kind of talk about the two different sides of this a little bit because as somebody, I would say, who's more emotional, I have been hurt by the people who have judged emotions. And also, I have been the person who judged people for being too emotional. So I've been on both sides of this battle. I was over emotional because I was trying to have less emotions. I didn't want to be an emotional woman. I didn't want to be weak. I had a lot of judgments about people who had big feelings. And so I was like, I'm going to shove my feelings down over and over. My whole mantra was like, I'm fine. I'm good. I can handle it. I can handle things without having big emotions. I felt proud of the times where I could go through hard things and like rise above all of my feelings and just shove them down into the basement of my house in my heart. But what that led to, my great suppression, would lead to me having a big emotional outburst, whether it was like I went into a depression for a few weeks, or I'd have crazy anxiety, or that I didn't know what it was connected to, or I would cry uncontrollably, or I'd have anger, like whatever it was, I would end up having an outburst. And I think a lot of times people that have dangerous emotions, and when I say dangerous, I mean like their emotions are hurting everyone around them. A lot of times that's because they were trying to hold their emotions in and swallow them until all of a sudden they threw up over everyone. And it got disgusting vomit everywhere. And so I wanted to talk about suppressing emotions can lead to explosions. And that is unfair. And I know that really hurt you in our marriage. And it felt really abrasive and shocking because I'd be like, fine, 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 fine. And then I'd have like big emotions that you'd be like, I don't understand where these are coming from. What is happening? It feels extreme. And actually it started making it so you couldn't trust me as much because you're like, she's either having these extreme emotions or no emotions. So what is real?
Yeah. I felt really whiplashed by that experience. I felt out of control. And you're right. It made me feel like I can't trust anything she has to say.
Yeah.
Because it's not just that they were suppressed, it's that they were denied.
Yeah.
So over here, it's like, if it seemed like you communicated,
I'm great.
fine, I'm good, everything's good. You're amazing. You're the best husband ever. And then the other side of the thing was like, you're terrible. You're horrible. This is horrible. And I'm like, what is it? What is truth?
Yeah.
And I think that made me feel, that was crazy making inside that.
Yeah. And I would say the same for you in our marriage. My greatest pain was because you would suppress and then explode, suppress and then explode. So I want to say that so that we can start to have compassion on an understanding for like a lot of people are trying to have less emotions and that's why they're having bigger emotions.
Right. And the goal shouldn't be, can I have less emotions? Can I healthily express my emotions should actually be the goal.
Yeah, I think about emotions like a ball of energy that is like sometimes it's like building. Like I'll feel emotions like anxiety or intensity or like butterflies or whatever. Like it's building, 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 building in me. And there needs to be some way that I move the energy out. It should not be yelling or screaming,
blaming,
or crying uncontrollably, or not. Crying's not bad, but like I used to cry in a way that was like extreme instead of actually just like connecting to myself, knowing my feelings and releasing it. Even things like we've learned when I feel angry, sometimes I got to go do heel stomps. I've got to release the intensity of the energy that has built up. I need to do that so I'm not releasing that energy at you.
That makes sense.
Yeah. The second thing, though, is people who are deniers of emotions.
Right.
People who have labeled. So we've got to think their body has labeled that emotions are threats. So a lot of times very stoic, non-emotional people, they often come from families where somebody was very emotional and it was unsafe. So their brain has labeled emotions are unsafe. And so when they are around people with emotions, they immediately go into self-protect mode, which can be logic. Some people go into, I call that going into fights. You go into lawyering. So you just get very, very logical, but you're in self-protection. You're not connected and open. Or you go into freeze, you get numb, or you go into flight, you get busy. And a lot of people will do that. And what they aren't aware of is that can continually invalidate the people around them when they won't acknowledge that there is pain going on, when they won't name emotions, when they won't say these emotions make sense. What they're doing is they're actually like, they're filtering all emotions as dangerous or all emotions as bad. And that creates a concept where the other partner is feeling so unseen because there's no way to have two people who have no emotions about anything. So if you have made it dangerous, then you will gaslight, deny, or shut down or be defensive all of the time to your partner when they're trying to share emotions. And it feels crazy making to feel like you're like, no, there's something real here. And somebody's like, no, there's not something real here. And you're like, no, there's a reason to have feelings. No, there's not. No, there's not. And that argument over that ends up making both people feel out of control.
Yeah. I know that I went into a lot of denial of the experience that we were having. Denial was a go-to for me on my end. Your emotions did feel terrifying to me. They didn't feel safe in a lot of ways, whether that was actually how you manage yourself, or it was also a component of my history?
I think it was both.
Yeah.
I think I didn't manage myself well, and your history was like, women's emotions are scary.
Yeah. So when you bring up something in a lot of intensity or aggressiveness or whatever that I perceived, at least, I would find myself being like, this isn't that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we bringing this up?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to have this conversation. You just need to adjust the way you're seeing things.
Very minimizing language.
Minimizing language, which ultimately here's a threat. I'm trying to take and reduce the threat.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, it's not even a bad thing.
Your nervous system is like, this doesn't feel safe.
Yes.
Safety will be to bring it back down to a normal size.
Yes. And how do I do that? So the logic was to bring enough logic or perceived logic into the situation to dismantle the reasoning for why the emotions are escalated. Then we can bring it down to a level that feels safe for me.
Right.
Right. But in that process, validating and attuning could have actually done that work.
Ooh.
Right. So if I would have actually just been like, oh, your emotions make sense. I want to understand them so I can make sense of them if they don't. It matters to me what you're experiencing. You would have easily let off the throttle probably in a lot of places and been like, I don't need to escalate this anymore.
Yes.
He cares about what my experience is. He's wanting to understand my truth. And so that would have been an entire game changer inside of it. But we're not taught that's like, okay, let me say this. The belief was also, if I sit here and validate this, especially things that are being articulated that don't have truth to them. Like sometimes you articulated things that I'm like,
I didn't do that.
That's bonkers. That has no truth. That is not factually true. So there was a poor way.
Who, me? Nah.
So there was really a poor way sometimes in the way that you delivered information that wasn't true. And the belief is if I validate her experience here inside of this, she is going to conclude that the things that she said had truth to them. And that's what she's going to live from. And I think a lot of people that deny people's emotions are because it's like, I don't want you to come to the conclusion that what you're saying is fully true.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's
but what happened was I didn't change your mind on stuff. In fact, what I did is I created more pain inside of the relationship and more problems.
And the more pain and more problems there were, the bigger language I used to be like, there are more pain. There's more problems here. There is a bigger issue happening. Right. And then you would minimize, it's not that big. And then I would say, it is that big and now it's bigger. Right. And then that would, that would drive me to insane places internally to which I would then be explosive and dominating. So then once these aren't all working, then I'm like, no, this is insane. This is crazy. Now I'm dominating over the situation. And it's this horrible dance that many people get in. No one wins inside of these exchanges. Ultimately, people walk away feeling more disconnected, more unheard, and more unsafe. So there's absolutely a way to course correct all of this. It doesn't have to go down that road, but often it does. Yeah. I think if we could all just validate, emotions are scary. They're scary for everyone on some level. Everyone has an emotion that feels threatening to them, whether it's anger or sadness or depression or vulnerability or rejection. Like everyone has an emotion they're terrified to feel or they're terrified to witness. And so we all have protectors of what we're trying to do to avoid that, because I'm listening to you and I'm like, most of our problems as a couple could boil down to we felt threatened by how the other person felt emotions.
Yeah.
The way you felt anxiety felt threatening to me. The way I expressed hurt felt threatening to you. And so we got into this battle of, I'm feeling scared of your emotions. I'm feeling scared of your emotions. And we villainized each other. I said the way that you feel emotions is wrong and bad. And you said the way that I felt emotions was wrong and bad.
And what we found out is that I was right.
The truth is you were right. The way I displayed my emotions was unhealthy. And the truth is I was right.
Well, What? Back up with the and stuff. No, there's only one of us that could be right. And I think that that's one of the pain points for a lot of people is that they can't actually hold that two truths can be right.
Mm-hmm.
It can be true that both people were having a very painful experience.
Yeah.
It can be true that both people were approaching the behavior in a way that wasn't okay.
Yeah.
A lot of time, again, it's either you're wrong and I'm right, or I'm right and you're wrong. And that has to be eradicated out of the relational experience. Like, we probably are both right on some stuff and both wrong on some stuff as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think about, one pain point that I had in our marriage was that I was having emotions and you were having emotions, but you had a side to you that had no emotions, the side that would just go cold into freeze. And I think that one of the most common problems in relationships is that one partner goes into freeze and they have no idea that feels horrible for the other person. Because freeze is so much, I'm just trying to protect myself. I'm just shutting down. I'm locking up. I'm going numb. I'm not feeling whatever it is so that I can be safe. It means you're in such a threat that you need to get safe. The way it feels for the other person is locked out, shut down, stabbed by abandonment and isolation.
Stabbed by abandonment.
Well, I don't think so I think we often can judge and look down and well, I don't have emotions like you do because I just get quiet.
Right.
I don't have emotions like you do because I just shut off and I don't have to share my feelings. And so we're like, I'm better than you because of this, while not understanding that it has the same amount of impact.
Well, it goes back to originally when I was talking about there was a person in my life who would then go cold, quiet, disconnect, and they weren't being big externally with emotions, but they were cutting me in a million different ways.
Yes.
With that disconnect from relationship, because that experience of abandonment was very real for me to have. And so it makes sense that when I was in freeze, even though that was a body reaction where in a lot of ways I was not in control of, my body just went, I'm frozen. The impact was still very painful to you. And it was very real and it's very reasonable.
Yes.
Because in a relationship where the attachment gets shattered all of a sudden, it sends a lot of mixed messages.
Yeah.
Like I love you and I'm for you over here, but over here,
I'm out. Who knows when I'm going to go out? Who knows how long I'll be out for? Who knows when I'll come back?
So that's just as unstable as an outburst.
A volatile expression.
Yep.
But oftentimes we judge that one is better than the other. And this happens. Couples in counseling hit this roadblock all of the time, which is one person has the dysfunction that feels really loud, like I'm blaming and I'm yelling and I'm arguing. And one person in the dysfunction has I just go silent or I lock up or I shut down. And oftentimes the person who has the out loud destructive behavior gets called out, and the person who's just shut down does not actually get told the impact they're creating as well. And that can create a lot of pain for people because I've seen there's a couple that we know right now that the wife has been really she got PTSD and she got anger came up from her, from a situation, a traumatic event that happened. Her husband went into freeze. So now every counselor that they go to, the counselor is seeing how angry and edgy she is. You can see it. And he's looking like the good guy in every situation, but she's angry and he's locked up and shut down. So she feels abandoned and alone. And so even though he looks like the good guy, she's feeling so much pain. Now, as they worked with a counselor that really could help them, the counselor started calling them both on their behavior because they're attachment wise, you both are contributing. Connection wise, you both are contributing. Nervous system wise, you both are contributing. And as he got called out that his freeze was affecting their relationship as much as her dominating was, she actually softened and was able to let go of more. And he actually softened and was able to be present more. And so when both people can see there's not a better way to have emotions. And I think we need to not judge each other, and we need to not judge ourselves, because she wasn't choosing to have a fight reaction. That was like naturally wired into her. And he wasn't choosing to have a freeze reaction. He wasn't like, I want to lock down and be stubborn and be cold and hurt you. Like, neither of them were choosing that was the reaction they wanted. Now, they had the choice, once they recognized what they were in, to figure out, what do I want to do from here? And so if we can see, we're going to have reactions. We're going to go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's what our body does when we feel threat. It's not, are you emotional or are you not emotional? It's, your body's going to react. And so what are you going to do when you're feeling the reactions in your system?
Yeah, that's good. One of the things that you were pointing out here just a second ago is that ultimately we're co-creating something.
Yeah.
And I don't think people like looking at the co-creative aspect of this situation. Like, I don't think people like saying like, yeah, I play a role.
Mm-hmm.
And two parties who are in these back and forths have to start asking the question, what is the role that I am playing inside of this? Because that's the only way that these things are going to actually get cleaned up and changed. Did you have anything else?
I mean, one of the thoughts I have is becoming aware of what you've judged. So a lot of what we have judged affects how we respond to people. So if I've judged anger, then if anyone even kind of has a little bit of anger, I'm going to have a harder time hearing them. If I've judged vulnerability, then anytime someone's vulnerable, I'm going to filter them out. So you have to kind of look at, what emotions have I judged?
Right. So what are acceptable and not acceptable? What are my beliefs about different emotions? I think that that was actually something that was really good for me. At one point, I sat down with a notebook and I started writing out different emotions and then my belief behind them. What do I believe to be true about this emotion, one after another? And I could see very clearly that a lot of the vulnerable emotions I thought were bullshit.
I love this.
Yep. And I could see that these very non-vulnerable ones, I was like, yeah, this is normal.
They're the best.
They're part of the human experience. Why doesn't everyone just express this?
Yes.
But again, these are all like, we make these judgments about emotions usually based on both our cultural upbringing and our experiences, where it says, you know, there was emotions like I had one guy who came into my office and he talked about how his mom was chronically depressed. So depressed that she was pretty consistently cycling through suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
And his conclusion is that sadness was her problem.
Absolutely.
And that sadness was at the root of all of her depression and suicidal ideation.
Yep.
And so he decided that sadness is a terrible emotion and that he would never be sad. He could only allow himself to have joy. And so what he didn't perceive is that within the depression and the suicidal ideation was helplessness, powerlessness, hopelessness. Those were the things, not the sadness. Sadness, healthily expressed, is a very powerful experience. And it's one that actually frees us. Like, when we can healthily grieve and express our sadness in a good way, I don't have to feel depressed. I can go, oh, okay, I got it off my chest. Now I can go be happy again. But when you're talking about judgments, we can have experiences like this man's had and his mom was having, and we can pass a judgment on something and say, I'll never touch that.
Totally.
And then when someone comes to us with it, we have this deep offense and this aggressive posture. So we're either running away from it or we're attacking it, saying that's problematic, that's stupid for you to have. And so if I have some sort of apprehension, words, Justin, if I have some apprehension to an emotion that someone is having, I start asking myself, what is the judgment I have about this?
Yeah.
Where are the places why do I feel unsafe with this thing that they're expressing?
Yeah. And one of the things that I think I do, because I'm like, I actually still have lots of emotions that feel threatening to me. I was thinking about my own story, and I know that there's a couple things that if people start having certain emotions, it like takes me back to my childhood instantly. And so what I have to do is I start by narrating, oh, I'm feeling threatened by them having this emotion. So I notice it. Oh, I'm feeling threatened by their helplessness. That feels like my mom. Then I'll say, oh, that makes me think I'm unsafe. That's not the truth though. I can set boundaries with their helplessness. I can end this conversation if I need to. I can nurture myself. I'm not a little kid that is trapped by my mom's helplessness. I now have power. And then typically what I'll do is I'll get kind of nurturing towards the part of me that's scared. So if I'm feeling like their emotion is a threat to me, I'm going to go towards, okay, it makes sense that your mom's helplessness really hurt you and really shut you down and destroyed a lot of your childhood. It makes sense that it feels really scary, and it makes sense that you're on edge right now. And just that turning towards myself, naming what's happening, I often deactivate from my threat. Enough. I at least, maybe the threat's not completely gone, but maybe I have where I'm just not as hijacked I have less anxiety in my body. So I can just be like, okay. And I can see this is their emotion and that it doesn't get to overpower me or overwhelm me. A lot of times that's what I do when I feel like an emotion is threatening. Now I have a very, I would say anger feels like a threatening emotion to me now. It maybe didn't used to, but now that is something that I have a high alert. So when people are starting to get angry, I'll feel the threat. And I don't think it's bad for people to have anger, but I do have a standard of how they present that to me. So I'm like, you're allowed to have anger, but it can't come out at me at all. So if I start to feel threatened, I will do the same thing. Let's say somebody's getting angry and it feels like that's starting to happen. I'll immediately narrate what's going on inside of me. I'm feeling threatened that they're having the emotion of anger. Everybody has anger. That's not actually bad, but I need to feel safe. So first, heart, of course you feel scared with anger because you've been through all of these circumstances where anger felt terrifying to you. It makes sense that anger feels destructive and like you're unsafe. Of course you are. I'm going to do something to make sure that you're not in a situation where anger gets to destroy you. So I want you to know that you're safe with me. And then what I'm normally going to do is I'm going to interrupt, and I have a script that I've already planned out because when I'm in the threat of an emotion, it feels overwhelming. So I just say, hey, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I can tell that my anxiety is raising inside my body, and I actually really care about what you have to say. I'm not sure if you're headed towards anger or not. But because of my own history with anxiety around anger, is there a way that we keep communicating about this but not raise our voices so that I really want to hear what you have to say. I really care about what you're saying. And if not, is there a way that we like maybe take a break and you can go vent? Because I want you to be able to vent. It's not bad that you need to vent, and it's not bad that you feel anger. But I'd want you to have space for that so that then we could have a conversation where I can hear you without me going into anxiety because I don't want to react poorly to what you're saying.
One of the things that you're talking about is capacity, right? And so each of us has a different capacity for different emotions.
Yeah.
And you're not saying, hey, you can't have this, but my capacity for certain expressions of it is limited. And I'm going to give you some clarity on how to participate with me if you want to express that anger. Because you think about it, like you may only have an ability for them to narrate, like, I can tell that I feel anger and I'm not going to get intense in this moment. Whereas someone else is like, go nuts, punch a wall. I don't care. It doesn't, like, anger is not even a problem with me. Whereas for you, you might be super receptive to sadness and tears. And you're like, yeah, you can cry all you want. And someone else is like, it really matters to me that you're sad. The tears that are happening all the time, I don't know that I can fully take the fullness of that. And so I would love to hear about your sadness. You can share it with me, but maybe the way that you're processing the tears might be best with a counselor or something like that. Like saying, it's like,
or a friend
or someone else, just like, I can't fully do that. I would love to be able to hold space for it, but this is the type of space I have the capacity to hold.
Most couples are terrified of their partner's emotions because they don't know that they're allowed to have boundaries.
Correct.
With their partner inside of their emotions. And when we don't know that we're allowed to have boundaries, we actually diminish, try to dismiss, invalidate, or deny their emotions. But when we actually realize that we can allow them to have feelings, but have them with boundaries, then we can start to create safety where both of our needs can get met.
It makes me think of one of the ways you used to process hopelessness. Mm-hmm. And you didn't just say like, hey, I'm having hopelessness in this area.
No.
You would go down a very long, extensive, dark hole, a rant that would be about all the worst case things that are going to happen, and it's never going to work out and everything's going to fall apart. And it was devastating for my soul to be in that experience. And along the way, there's a lot of places where I was like, I don't have the capacity to have conversations like this, Abby. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like I was against you saying like, I'm feeling really hopeless today.
Yeah.
It was the 30-minute.
When I was lost in the hopelessness,
yes,
speaking it out as my truth, not narrating what was going on inside of me.
Right. And that, right or wrong, like on either side of that, mm-hmm. I just know that it drug me down really hard. Absolutely. And I couldn't keep stability mm-hmm. when you'd process in that manner. Now, as you've evolved like massively in the way that you communicate about this. Now you come to me and you're like, I can tell I had a really rough day. I was feeling a lot of hopelessness in some areas. And I'm like, oh, that matters to me. And I can sit down and be with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that is one of the ways when we talked about having emotions, but not hurting people with them.
Right.
One of the ways we can have emotions is to narrate about them like an observer instead of being lost in them to our partner. So I used to be lost in the hopelessness and I'd be like, everything's falling apart. I'm never going to get healthy. We're never going to have our career work. Everything's like crumbling beneath us. And I hate everything. And it did feel overwhelming for you. Yeah. Now, if I was doing it, I would narrate, which would be, I'm still acknowledging the same emotions, but I would say, I can tell I'm having lots of hopeless thoughts about our future. I am OCD looping around everything that's going wrong because I have a lot of threat that's going off and I have so much of that negative energy in my body and in my thoughts that I'm having a hard time getting out. Mm-hmm. Now you hear me because it is not being put on you. You're now being told about it.
And it's not all consuming. And I think the way that you described mm-hmm. your first expression is sometimes where people land in the place of communicating you're too emotional, mm-hmm. which is, again,
you're consumed and you've lost logic.
You've lost logic. You're fully consumed with this. Mm-hmm. And the way that you're communicating it isn't just a narration, but it's as if it's truth.
Well, I'm going to open a can, even though we're about to close this podcast down. But a lot of times when I was feeling emotions, I was actually in my little kid self.
Right.
Where I was, if we want to talk scientifically, my amygdala was hijacking my brain, which meant all of the blood was in my emotion center that's just in the reaction center. And my prefrontal cortex, which is my logic, was offline. So I put it here because this is your prefrontal cortex. Your amygdala is back here. And so when my logic was offline and I was fully in emotional reaction land, that feels dangerous. And that feels dangerous for everyone.
Yeah.
Because when someone's logic is off, you don't know how to get through to them. You don't know how to find them. You don't know how to stop them. They don't respond to boundaries in the same way. I was lost in my little kid. And so that is one thing that I think when people say I'm just too emotional, it might be that you actually go into operating from your little kid and losing the ability to keep one foot in your adult self, your logic self,
your powerful self.
Your powerful self. Like in my counseling sessions, my counselor is trying to train me how to feel my feelings while keeping one foot in my present self, my present powerful adult self. And so oftentimes she'll still have to remind me, oh, but you're powerful now. Now you never have to be out of control when somebody has emotions like that. You can always walk away. Oh, but that was you when you were little. That's not who you are now. And there's a constant reflecting back to being powerful, because when we trigger back to flashbacks from our little kid self, our brain is not online. And so that does feel dangerous to people. And so when we're having this conversation of, are your emotions just too big and are they just hurting people? If I was to be honest with myself, I'd be like, for a lot of years, I was in my little kid and I was having big emotional reactions, and it did feel dangerous to people, and it's logical. If you've ever been around somebody that feels untethered or like lost in their emotion and they can't see you anymore, it does feel a little bit out of control.
Yeah. There's something about when you're consumed by emotion versus having a level of self-management, like that too emotional thing to me is like, you are consumed.
Yeah.
You no longer are running the ship. Your emotions are steering the entire thing. And I think that's where, like, I know that people get lost over in the logical end of stuff, where they're like, it's logic, it's only logic. And I'm like, well, that's only robotic.
Yeah.
And so there's that beautiful blend of where we tether logic and emotions together, and they're actually meant to be best friends.
Yes.
That help us navigate the experience of life. And they help us, like, logic actually is a very good gift to help me relate my experience of my emotions to someone else. Like, if I can logically narrate and communicate what's going on inside of myself while maintaining healthy self-management, then people don't have to be scared of my emotions, because I'm not coming in a way that is me being out of control, but it's a way of me being very much in my body with myself, and it's allowing them to look at my emotions with me logically and emotionally as well. And so again, to me, like, a lot of this is solved when people begin to have a value for both sides of that coin.
Yep.
And then understand how they're expressing themselves as they're acting.
And we shared both sides of the coin because we're wanting to humanize that both ways that we protect ourselves are human.
Yeah.
And wanting to, like, if you do have big emotions, we want you to be like, yeah, you need to learn how to manage them more. And it's really effing painful when you're with a partner who's only minimizing them, and you need to find a pathway with your partner to have somebody who's learning to not minimize them, figuring out how can we have healthy emotions together? How can we find our way? Because there's no way to have intimacy without being able to have a safe place for emotions inside of your relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I know we got to wrap this up. As people are listening to this, I'm sure there's been a lot of triggers all over the place, because this is a hard conversation, but it's one worth having. I think for anybody who's listening to this, if you have a partner that you're in a relationship with, you should definitely listen to this conversation with them.
See if you can do it together.
And it might even be really good to have this listen to this with other couples. So as a group.
So it's not so intense on just you two.
Yeah. Where you get to go, hey, there are 3 or 4 of us couples that sat down together and we're like, oh, I relate to that. Oh, I'm doing this. And it would be really beautiful if everyone, as they're walking through listening to this, could take time to take ownership and acknowledge, this is where I am.
This is what I've done.
This is how I've shown up inside of the spectrum of this conversation. And I think that in and of itself is very repairing. Like, that's where repair work happens. Where it's just like, let's call truth.
Absolutely.
I'm that, I've done that, and I'm sorry about that. And I think you could see some really beautiful things happen between partners and between groups of people. And so relate. And with that, there's a lot of compassion. When you get together with a group and listen to something like this, and you can all see, like, whoa, we're each on each side of this. We see ourselves. There's compassion for each other collectively, camaraderie.
That's why I love the courses that we do so much, because people are like, I'm not the only one. Everyone struggles with this. If this impacted you, share it with people. We make this so that we can help as many people, and we want to just create dialogues, and we want to create a place where you can feel validated for where you're at and who you are, and break shame for where you're at, normalize the human experience. And then we want you to feel empowered to find ways to become the healthier version of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you've enjoyed this, if you're not on YouTube with us, watching over there, you can go to justinabby.com. That's abi.com/The Connected Life. It'll take you to our YouTube page. You can hit the subscribe button, the bell button.
Ding, ding.
Ding a ding a ding a ding a ding a ding ding if you haven't already. And yeah, this is a good time. Thanks for spending time with me.
You know, I would like to say 2 more things.
Nope, you're being overly emotional.
I am sorry for how much hopelessness I spewed over you, and how I got I would call it like a hopelessness tornado that I got lost in. I got completely consumed by my emotions. I shoved my emotions down, or was fully like consumed by them, taken over by them. And that would be horrible. And I don't think we've talked about that like specifically. When you brought it up today, I thought that makes a lot of sense. And I'm really glad that you were able to start having boundaries with me. Well, and that I was able to grow out of that phase.
And babe, I want you to feel
30-year phase.
I want you to feel the freedom to circle back and have that conversation as much as you want with me. I just want you to feel valid in saying that.
Oh, good. Anyways. Yeah. The last thing I'll say is that we have the Connection Cure membership. It's a monthly membership that we are about to release. We just want to let you know about it.
Or it has been released. Who knows?
We will let you know as it goes, but it is, we're very excited about it. And it's a great way to heal, actually get empowerment, learn more about yourself, learn how you make sense, why you make sense, and how to heal.
Yep. All right. I am done. I'm done for today. Like done. Goodbye.
Goodbye.